Hello, Aggers.
Great to see you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted.
You must be. I mean,
to be up here. Something of an ambition of mine, actually.
Has it?
Yeah, I was just talking to my friend Bradley Adams. Sitting. He said, "Have you ever been on TMS?" I said, "Well, I would love to." And 30 seconds later, one of your team came and sat next to me and said, "Do you want to come on TMS?"
Hey,
so
we only employ the best here, you know. Should I be searching you? I mean, sort of sweeping the commentary box.
I don't worry.
My
my vest was removed at the East Gates on the way in. Don't worry. So we're all okay.
You must have all sorts of tedious stuff like that thrown at you. I mean, what's it like? I mean, sitting in a you're just in an empty stand. I mean, people must be recognising you as who you are and so on.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of photograph taking. It's nice. It's nice.
Yes, it is.
It's nice before tea. The final session, it gets a little bit more rowdy,
a bit boisterous.
Yeah, but this is an amazing view. Just saying to the team up here, it feels like you can touch the players from here. One sort of reach down and pick them up. It's extraordinary, this view. Well,
we're very lucky to work here. It's easy to take for granted, if we're honest. I mean, you know, to come and work here every day. How often do you get here?
I get, you know, I'm a sort of 2-day a year. You know, I try to get to the Lord's Test. You know, I apply for tickets like everyone else.
Yes.
And I've had 2 lovely days in the Upper Edridge stand. Thank you very much.
I bet cold though.
Got a bit burnt yesterday.
Did you? Well,
only has to get to 14, and that puts me in a lot of trouble.
I tried to drop a bit of a hint that you were coming on, but I said I suspect as quietly you admire Johnny Bairstow. I mean, is that a fair comment?
Johnny Bairstow you keeping the red-headed end up. Yes, doing very well.
Are you one of those a bit frustrated about the pace of the play or not? You were here yesterday, I think.
It was attritional yesterday, wasn't it? Yes. It was. The cricket was a little bit like elevator music, slightly in the background.
Do you mind it like that, or are you a pucker cricket lover, as it were?
I love to listen to a bit of TMS in my ear at the same time. But it is. I'm not going to lie to you, Aggers. It is an opportunity to meet up with friends as well.
Yes, and you've brought plenty in here. We have a commentary box full of friends.
We've got Charlie Cumming. What do I call you? John le Carré's heir.
Oh, really?
And he's a famous thriller writer. Bradley Adams, producer. Thomas Ward, famous actor.
Yes, your room full.
We're all here.
I know, no, it's fantastic. It is great to see you. So when did it all start for you? You were born near here, weren't you?
I grew up on Abbey Road.
Yes. So Lord's was always there.
I spent every Easter in the nets here at the Lord's Indoor School, perfecting my off-drive.
What sort of age was that then?
From 8 to 13 to sort of 15, 16.
Really? And who would have been coaching you then?
Gordon Jenkins. I always remember Gordon Jenkins.
Yes, of course.
Got very excited about my off-spin and tried to recruit me for Middlesex under-13s, and then I only bowled full tosses basically from that moment on, and so it was a brief glimpse of glory.
Was it?
But I was actually never that good.
No,
unfortunately.
You're a Middlesex man, presumably.
I was too interested in the finish. The high left elbow. To worry about actually connecting.
The photographer's dream.
Yes,
shot,
exactly.
So you supported Middlesex, did you? You're a Middlesex.
Yeah,
man.
I grew up supporting Middlesex and.
Does that mean Gus Fraser and?
Absolutely.
So,
Gus Fraser back in the day.
But you've gone back. So John Embry and Mike Brearley.
Grew up. Grew up as a young kid watching the late 70s, early 80s cricket. Yeah. Exactly. All that Gat and Gower and Both and I mean they weren't Middlesex, but Gat was, but and then watching all those great Ashes series and Botham series, and we were just hearing Jeffrey talk about facing the 4 famous quickies, who seemed to rotate. There was always just one to come in and take that 4th berth for the West Indies, wasn't there, for a time there, and so. Yeah.
What was your first memory of watching cricket here then? I mean, if you were popping down here with you.
My first memory, actually, one of my earliest memories was watching Both at the far end there, at the pavilion end, go onto one leg, go down on his knee, and sweep someone into the top stand of the grandstand from a sweep. And I was so staggered by it. Yeah. I was like 13 years old. I was like, how can anyone do that sort of on one knee? Yes. But he did. He just swept. It was a sweep, and he just swept it for 6 straight into this top stand here, the grandstand.
For someone of your age, have you seen him? He's only next door,
I'm all positive. I've actually been on the golf course a little bit with Varney and Sir Ian once or twice, but.
I mean, he must have been, for someone of your age then, he must have been an absolute sporting icon, wasn't he? I mean...
Of course he was, and I mean, I'm going back to the what am I? I'm going to better get the date right.
81,
83, 84, 81. It was 81,
Yes.
wasn't it? 81. But just as just as much of a star that summer was Bob Willis in that finals when he got 8 for 43, and I remember him splaying Ray Bright's stumps for the 8th wicket, and it was just a great
thing for
moment.
cricket, isn't it? Yeah.
And both of them was just styling himself already at that point as a legend, and but Bob Willis was extraordinary.
Yeah. Do you find even when you play golf with you, you sort of slightly in awe of him still now? I mean, he's a bit more portly these days, and very convivial company, of course. But
all these sportsmen, all of them. When you've played sport at a top level like that, it might be 740, in a charity event at Sunningdale, but if they don't win, it never goes away.
So cricket for you, I mean, is it proper Test cricket? Is that what you prefer, or do you follow 2020 and one?
I do. I'm a traditionalist. I would sit in Jeffrey's camp. I think, 5-day cricket. And I love working in America and explaining to them we have a game that we play for 5 days.
I was going to come on to this,
and no one might win at the end of it.
How do you try and sell cricket to them, or do you not even bother?
I just think cricket is something you have to grow up with it. I think it needs to be in you. It's innately part of you and your experience of growing up, and then it all seems natural and a little eccentric at times and entirely British. And I don't spend that long trying to explain to Americans what
But do you listen, or do you follow it? Have you got sling boxes and radios and that sort of stuff? Are you that much of a fan that you, when you're over there, you try and keep in touch with?
Oh, I have it on. Yeah, have it on, and you can do it all online now. It's extraordinary.
Yes.
So I'm not having to find you on shortwave anymore. So that's quite good.
Yeah, it must be. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, to be working as you are over there. How much time do you spend over there?
Currently filming this series Homeland. I'm there 5 months of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And sadly through the summer, so I was so excited. I thought actually I was going to be there already, but I applied for tickets for this test, being the first test of the summer. I was very excited. Probably doesn't have it doesn't. Does it have the cachet of the Ashes?
Not quite.
But nevertheless, I found that I was going to be delayed going to America. Then my tickets came through, and I thought, I can't believe I'm going to get 2 days at Lord's.
Yes.
I might stay here for 2 weeks, but I'll get 2 days of cricket, and because I will probably miss most of the Ashes because I'll be in North Carolina, and I will be listening to your dulcet tones.
Well, it'll be torture for you though, won't it?
It's hard. It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, you can picture us now, though.
I know.
Hopefully not with the floodlights on.
Now I know what the view's like from here. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So do you take the whole life with you? And how do you go away for 5 months at a time? They shoot the whole...
Yeah, you do. You go away for 5 months. My family come out for the summer vacation, to use an American word, for the 2 months of summer. And it works.
Because your wife is acting and working at the same...
She's an actress and is filming today, in fact, somewhere with Kate Winslet. Give that a little plug.
Yes.
A film called Little Chaos, if anyone's interested in seeing it later in the year. Alan Rickman is directing that.
Really?
And
how does that work to be both in the same family? I mean, are you actually, you get away from home, you just put the whole
pros
thing
and
away?
Pros and cons. It works very well because you have two people who understand what's needed, and but you do have to dovetail your work as much as you can.
And I know you've got other work outside, so you do have to juggle a bit. If you're going away for 5 months, that means you've got to come back and actually be more of a home bird and do that.
Yeah.
But especially with a sort of a profile, though. I mean, I was just doing some very quick research on it. There's even pictures of you having a bit of a pucker up at the awards the other day. You've seen it in awards season, by the way, at the moment, don't you? But even that, I mean, if you've got people following you around, do they follow you around or not? I mean, whatever you do seems to...
There's a bit of following going on. I suppose, you can always duck out, can't you? You can reject it all and decide that's not for you, that's not what you want,
Well, duck out of the whole career, I mean.
For the whole thing, yeah, you could choose to, but if you choose not to, I think you have to accept what comes with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's enjoyable, and sometimes it isn't. But you chose it.
Yes.
And if you don't like it, then I suppose, the cautionary tale is be careful what you wish for.
Yes. Do you feel you're on duty, though? It's like all the time. If you go to Tesco's, you're just going to get people wandering up and pestering or talking or being very nice.
Yeah. Sometimes people. Well, it's odd. I could ask. I mean, Tom's standing here right next to me. He was 10 years in silent witness. I mean, it's the same thing. People. I think if you're in people's sitting rooms that often and become a sort of fixture and are in some way intriguing or are liked by people, they do take a sort of odd ownership of you, and that can happen. And they quite often don't draw the distinction between you as a person who should be able to enjoy Tesco's or Lord's, a day at Lord's, and don't make the distinction between that and your character on the telly.
Yes.
So they, and sometimes also I think. If I may branch out and broader philosophical point about the little gadgets that we all have in our lives nowadays, there's actually, because everyone sees the world through the screen on their phone now, actually it's a sort of an interface between you and the person, interfaces, and what happens, it removes you from the reality of speaking to the person. So everything sort of becomes a story. Everything's become a story for everybody now.
Yes.
So you then just become part of the story on their screen.
It is true. Unless the photograph's taken, it didn't really happen. Almost.
Exactly. So they haven't quite had they haven't had the experience unless they've photographed it and sent it.
Indeed.
But it's that's quite just an interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, part of the evolution of our gadgets.
Yeah.
It has changed the way people. Because you can stare, you can look up and find someone with a camera in your face, and they don't flinch. Because they're just sort of wondering what you'll do, because you've become part of their narrative on their screen.
Yes.
And they put it down, and they look at you, and you see you staring at them, and then they sort of blush, go, "Oh, sorry, put it away." But up to so it's interesting. It's interesting what's happened.
And how do you find life over there? I mean, here you are, old Etonian, as Henry, of course. I mean, I don't, for goodness sake, wear trousers. Promise me one thing, Damien. That is an old Etonian of not so many years
they're
ago.
not even. They're not ox blood trousers.
I mean, you're not going to. They are very smart, Henry. We've said they're very smart all day, but you're not. I mean,
they're actually very like a pair that my father wears quite often. So,
well, that's very worrying. But I mean, the old Etonian in you, you're not going to morph or gently become that sort of model of an old Etonian, are you?
Well, I think, but I think every young man should aspire to be like Blowers. I don't. I think he's looking fantastic, dandyish, I would say, dandyish.
Is that a label you've had to get rid of, though? The old Etonian bit. Is that a bit of a millstone? I mean, people mock politicians at the moment because of their background and so on. Has that ever been an issue with you or not?
Well, it has. It's created complications that the country seems to be being run by a selection of old Etonians and friends. So of course it's very current. It is a current topic, and it's in the air. No, from a career point of view, I have to say I was. I suppose astute enough to not mention it for about the first 10 years of acting, and
really,
because I wanted to avoid typecasting. And once I felt sure that I had avoided typecasting and I wasn't just playing sort of foppish, posh people, partly because I have red hair and they didn't want me to play those types. So I avoided it. And then, of course, as soon as I mentioned it, every article started with old Etonian Damian Lewis.
Yes.
So no, but to be honest, it's an extremely rare place to spend 5 years of your life, especially as a teenager. And I'm not surprised by the interest in it. I'm sort of interested myself. It was enjoyable. It was enjoyable as much as school can be enjoyable. I think I would rather not have been at school, just generally. I was a bit of a daydreamer, but I loved what it provided. I was able to play as much sport as I wanted.
Yes.
I wasn't quite good enough to play in the 11 here at Lord's. I was 12th man. I fetched my good friend Adrian Bignell's very sweaty box. No. He'd been at Silly Point for quite a lot of the afternoon, and so he, with a look of glee on his face, reached down for his box and handed it to me and said, "Go on, run off with that."
Oh, that's not kind.
No, and. I hope I'm not getting too racy for.
No, it's okay. How shattered were you when you were told you're 12th man? I mean, that must have been an absolute devastating blow, wasn't it?
No, because to be honest, I was only playing second 11 cricket anyway, so it was sort of an elevation for me just to be included at all. But I think it's because I've been in the second 11 years these things haven't scarred me.
No, they haven't.
I don't want to give you the impression for a moment that these things... My brother Gareth and my brother William, who will never forgive me if I don't mention, are both here today, and they both played out here.
Did they?
For 2 and 3 years apiece.
Did they?
Yeah, they were...
They do all right? They've got those lovely memories
They do. William won't mind me saying that Gareth did slightly better. Gareth was a strike bowler, and he took, I think, 3 wickets each time.
How well do you know this place? I mean, if you only live down the road and you've been here and you pop in, I mean, have you done the pavilion bit? Have you been through the dressing rooms, the long room? Have you really got some of the history, felt it?
The pavilion is a beautiful, beautiful building. I've been into the long room twice, perhaps, and I've been into the real tennis courts behind.
Oh yes,
but I've mostly been scattered around the ground. You know, just applying for tickets like everyone else. Dad was a member, so we used to come up here as kids. We always came to the NatWest one day final when it was NatWest, so that dates me.
So
where does that take us
too? Yeah.
So that's back to the 80s.
Yes.
Back to the 80s, and we were always Rover tickets, so they're in the Warner stand.
Yeah.
We could never get ourselves up early enough to be close behind the bowler's arms. We were always just off to the side a bit.
What is it about Lords that makes it special, do you think? What do you feel when you come in here?
Well, I don't think you... I would say this about any great building or great institution or ground, perhaps, but you can't cheat history. And Lords, it feels like where it all started. And in fact, the original site down in Dorset Square, it's fantastic when you go through Dorset Square, which is a much smaller site than this.
Yes.
But realise that's where the original Lord's ground was before it was moved out here. And I ride my bicycle a lot, just bicycling from Dorset Square up to here and knowing that the decision was taken at some point just to come out here to St John's Wood, put it down here, and the home of cricket. It's quite fitting that there is something like a 7.5-foot drop from one side of the outfield to the next. They didn't quite manage to get it straight. Little things like that just lend its charm, and it's one of the great sporting arenas. It has an epic, as I say, sort of historical quality to it, but it's also very intimate.
Yes.
So you always feel absolutely engaged with the cricket.
You'd be perfect to play somebody in a cricketing film, wouldn't you? Because you see the poor old actors struggling in that. It never quite works, does it? I mean, would you have to play a batsman? Could you play?
As long as nothing getting up off a length, Aggers. I was never very brave.
Well, no, I wasn't either.
I didn't like anything like that.
No, well, they could probably avoid
as long as
that.
it was just nicely in the block, or I could get my front foot forward.
Yeah, because there must be a role for you. I mean, there are cricket films that are made, and unfortunately, the actors...
Maybe Johnny Bairstow's biopic.
Actually, that might be the... It might be the answer. You could be a Johnny Bairstow double.
Be quite old by the time we were having a look back at his career.
James Bond for you? Could there be a red-haired James Bond?
James Bond, Ginge Bond.
Yes.
It has a ring to it.
Think you're ready for that?
I don't see why not.
Now, you do play for the Bunburys, or Mickey Take It Side, don't you? And how have you been performing in that?
Do you know what? I haven't played for the last couple of years, so I actually can't really tell you how I've been performing.
What sort of form you're in?
I just haven't been around. But
best when fresh.
Yes, quite exactly. Always looking for games of cricket, and the great thing about being, resting actors as we are for half of the year is you can play midweek cricket. So actually, that's my next goal is to find some good midweek cricket. Maybe Hampstead Cricket Club. Or
there is
something.
an actors cricket group.
Well, there are lots of them played. Tim Rice and
yes, absolutely.
Harold Pinter, of course, used to finish playing. Sam Mendes, and they're all out there playing.
They are. But Rachel, one email. She's a huge fan of Homeland and Band of Brothers. Can you believe how popular those programmes have become around the world?
You never. It's always surprising. It's always surprising. All you try to do is put yourself in good positions with talented and interesting people, and I felt I was doing that with Homeland and Band of Brothers. Everything other than that is beyond your control. It's something that just is visited on you.
It does just click. I mean, what is the success of those programs? Is it people working on it? Is it just because it's a very good story, very good script? Is it because it's beautifully produced? Or is it just everything? Everything just clicks into place amongst all of you? Is that the success?
Well, I think Homeland is first and foremost, just very good entertainment, but I think it's quite sophisticated at times, and risks, dares to be political, dares to be a little bit provocative, has arguably given one of the more sensitive portrayals of Islam and what it's like to be a Muslim in recent years. I think they've done very well with it, and I was always very very clear that I didn't want to just be part of a program that would draw some lazy parallels between violence and Islam. I thought that would be irresponsible, and I think they've managed to not do that. Or not to do that, so I don't split my infinitive.
And, old Etonian's not splitting infinitive.
We're in trouble. I got my novelist friend Charlie here, so says, don't split an infinitive, please.
No, you must definitely
But Charlie writes thrillers. I think, people love thrillers,
Thank you for taking time to come in here.
It was an absolute pleasure to be here. Because I'm a huge fan.